Hello, you are listening to the Musicking Community, the podcast that explores and celebrates the role of music and musicians in the context of local communities wherever they might be. I'm Heather Niemi Savage, composer, collaborative pianist, music teacher, and your host of the Musicking Community. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I interview composers Josh Rodriguez and Xavier Beteta about their new project, a composition festival in Guatemala called Guatemala Contemporanea. Both are professors of composition in the United States, but are originally from South America. Josh is from Argentina and Xavier is from Guatemala. They have joined together to create this new festival entering its second year. They will give us all the details as well as share some of their thoughts on the definition of success, what musical and non-musical skills are important for composers to have, and where they find their inspiration. You are listening to episode number 28. Well, welcome to Josh Rodriguez and Xavier Beteta. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Musicking Community Podcast. I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, and this is my first time interviewing two people, so this is pretty exciting. I know you have a project in Guatemala that you are going to tell us about. But I want to start off asking you each to tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into music, and how you got to where you are today. So, who wants to go first?
Javier, why don't you take it?
Yeah, I am originally from Guatemala, and I studied music there at the National Conservatory, first as a pianist. And then I got a scholarship to study here in the US. So my undergrad was in piano performance, and then I pursued composition. I always was composing on the side, and got a doctorate from UC San Diego in composition, and now I teach at Wheaton College. So that's kind of like a larger span of my biography.
Yeah. So what drew you to music when you were young?
I always felt attracted to it. In fact, I was the one who asked my parents to put me in piano lessons when I was like 10, and my mom agreed and they started paying for lessons, and I started to advance quickly, and, then they had to buy a piano, and next thing they know, I'm winning the competition in Guatemala. So it was never something that I felt I had to do. It was always I loved and I really liked a lot, and spend lots of hours doing it.
All right. How about you, Josh?
So for me, life began in Córdoba, Argentina. That's where my parents were living at the time. But we left shortly after I was born. So my first memories are of Guatemala City. And Javier and I know some of the same places, but I wasn't born there. I just spent my childhood there. When I was about 12 years old, I moved from Guatemala to Monterrey, Mexico, and that's where I spent my teen years until it was time for studies. I came to the United States for studies. In my case, my mother is from Southern Illinois, so there's always been like a foot in Southern Illinois in North America, and then my father is from Colombia, so family in South America. And then I eventually did my doctorate at UCLA.
All right. And now you are teaching at, oh my goodness, can't remember the name of the school. So tell us where you're teaching.
Elmhurst University. Yeah, that's where I am now.
Elmhurst, yes. All right. And so you're both outside of Chicago, right?
Correct.
So I imagine that is helping you with your project, being able to be in relatively close proximity.
It is helpful, yes.
Yeah.
Although now, of course, with the internet, we're able to connect with people all over the world pretty quickly, and without it being expensive. And so we are in touch with some people on the ground in Guatemala who are helping us on that end as well as we coordinate this festival.
All right, so let's talk about the festival. What is the name of the festival, and how did you come up with this idea for this festival?
Want to take that one, Javier?
Yeah. The name is Guatemala Contemporanea or Contemporary Guatemala. And we came up with the idea last year because we had talked with Josh about, how much we would like to, go back to Guatemala and, try to teach some composition, especially because there is not a strong school of composition there. So we finally decided to do it last year, and it went pretty well. We, had master classes and gave lectures, met some students that are, could have a lot of potential as composers. We had an ensemble that played their pieces, and yeah, so we had a very good experience last year, and we decided, we should try to do it again this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So where did you hold it, and how many people came, and anything else you want to share about that?
Yeah, we had some uh, connections with the University of Del Valle or Del Valle University in Guatemala. There is another composer there who teaches there, and he graciously allows us to use their rooms and auditorium, etc. And we also had last year. We also had 2 days in the National Conservatory. So we did 2 days in the conservatory and 2 days in the Del Valle University. Maybe Josh can talk about how many people came and the students.
Yeah, so this was first time, and we, I think at the end of the day, there were probably about 30 people involved. There were because there were musicians involved in playing the music, there were the performers, there were composers who showed up, performers who showed up. And so it was a small group, and some days it was far less than that. There'd be 10 of us maybe in a room or
Yeah,
eight
yeah.
of us in a room. Um, and as Javier mentioned, Guatemala doesn't have a unified classical music presence as there is in some other countries like Colombia, Argentina, or here in the United States. And so everyone is in their corner doing their thing, and it's interesting, but bringing them together was the goal. And so we figured, we should probably try to make this a regular thing, not just a one-off, quick visit, but rather an investment in this community that we both love. It's a great excuse for us to just go back to Guatemala. And in my case, I hadn't been back in over 20 years since I had
Mm,
left as a kid. So it was a real treat to go back. And so our hope is to continually invest and to develop this group of composers. Some of the same composers who came last year are coming back, and then one of the things that's different about the festival this year is that we are launching it in partnership with another festival, and maybe Javier could talk about that.
okay.
Yeah, so the other festival is called La Centro, and it is a festival of orchestra musicians. So they are holding master classes for instrumentalists, violin, cello, etc. And so the organizer of that festival told me maybe we could do it at the same time together, and in that way we could have some musicians from the festival play the music of our composers. So
Mm.
that's what we'll be doing this year.
Yeah, that sounds very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're really helping to build the community in Guatemala among musicians, performers, and composers, and helping to give a space for them to meet and collaborate a little more than they're able to normally. Yeah.
That's the idea. We would like to help them network,
Hmm.
and I'm in touch with one of the students who was there, who's interested in studying in the United States, and so offering advice on, how to prepare for a university degree and the specifics of university study here in the United States. That's what we've been discussing. I know one of those composers has been taking online master classes, with another composer, I think, based in Mexico. And then one of the things we did is after the festival, about a month and a half later, we offered a follow-up free online masterclass where we gathered any composers who wanted to meet up again, who had new music that they wanted to share with us and with each other. And so we're just trying to do our part to create some consistency as much as possible.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know. I mean, I know kind of where Guatemala is, but the geography and the size of the country, how far away are people coming to attend the festival?
So the country, Guatemala, is just right below Mexico if you're looking from north going south. And then the people who came to the festival for our first festival, this was all Guatemalans. I don't think we had, well, we
Oh,
had
we had some people from El Salvador,
and we
right?
had some people from El Salvador too, which is neighboring country and very close. So yeah, so we had some people from El Salvador. This year, I'll be curious to know who shows up. I mean, this is all very small and grassroots, so we'll see. We're trying to spread the word. We had an international call for scores, specifically for music written by Latin American composers, and of course, there was a hope that these composers would actually be participating in the festival, and that did help us in programming some of the music. Um, the other thing that was interesting about this first festival that was important to us is we wanted to highlight some of the music making that's already happening in Guatemala. And the national instrument in Guatemala is the marimba.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an instrument that I grew up hearing when I was a kid.
Yep.
In some restaurants, you'll have a marimba over in the corner. It'll be played by two or three people. There's a very specific sound. Sometimes there's a drum set and bass that are involved as well. And so it's one of the many folk musics that exist in Guatemala. So the first year we had one of the leading musicologists on the marimba come and offer a session and presented his book, and then the marimba was a part of the music that we were writing. We incorporated that into the chamber music. So this year we're doing something different. The focus is going to be more on strings and string quartet writing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so for how many composers, because I don't know what kind of opportunities they might have to have their work performed. So how many got their work performed? And I don't need exact numbers. It's just something that I'm thinking of, the opportunity to have their work performed and hear it live. Was that a new experience for many of your composers?
Yeah, I think it was new for some of them. I think we had around for ensemble pieces, it was like six or seven composers, and then we had also piano music. They wrote piano pieces, and that we had another, I don't know, five or six. Um, so yeah, the interesting part was that some of them might not be able to put together an ensemble, so even though they have the desire to write a piece for strings and woodwinds or whatever, then that's it, right? You write it and it stays on on Dorico or Finale, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
you just hear the MIDI. But I think as a composer, where the real work happens is not so much on the computer, but once you really have to deal with real people, real instruments, what they can do, what they cannot do, what things work, and that's where you learn, right? Like that's how you learn. Like don't write, very pianissimo in the high register of the flute because it's gonna not be possible. And those things, the computer just play them the same. So those are the things that I think are interesting. That learning of what things can be done and what things don't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I was just thinking about what Javier was saying, and that's one of the things, this live music making that a university education can offer. It's one of the things that maybe a composer might struggle to get if they didn't study composition in an institution that has those kinds of resources. I don't know if composition can really be taught. It can certainly be fine-tuned and honed, and a creative sensibilities can be sharpened, and the technical aspects of orchestration can be developed further. But I think one of the things that I took away from my time as a student was that I was surrounded by musicians every day, and I was developing friendships with these performers. I was also, there were parts of the curriculum where I was supposed to write something and I would get to hear it. And so, absolutely right, Javier, that without that extra component of hearing your work being played back, there's a part of the educational developmental kind of loop that is severely weakened. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to provide for the composers in the festival.
Yeah, yeah. So what did it take to get this going the first time? I know you coordinated with the school down there, but on this end, what did you have to do to get this together?
A lot of conversations, a lot of headaches, logistics, but yeah, specifically, yeah, we could maybe Javier, you can jump in. We can kind of talk about. So it began with this idea of establishing a festival in Guatemala. Began with those conversations, and then I believe Javier went ahead and reached out to his colleagues who were at the conservatory and at Universidad del Valle, and we tried to figure out some dates in which we could all be present there. And then once we had the hall and kind of the hall guaranteed for a few days, we started to work backwards.
Mm,
Um, for me, my flight expenses and the lodging, that kind of thing, was covered by my institution. So that was wonderful. And then I believe that's what it was for Javier as well. So we were able to cover that part. And this grand experiment. And so we're grateful to have the support of our institutions. We also wanted to make sure there was no barrier to anyone who wanted to participate in the festival. So for this first festival, we didn't charge anything, and we just tried to spread the word as much as possible so that whoever wanted to come, could come. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to remember exactly how many composers. We probably had like eight composers. When I mentioned 30, it was more like counting musicians, and there's some audience
right.
members and things like that. But it ended up being a group of about, I think, eight of us, eight or 10, who kind of came together and spent those 3 or 4 days together. And then we launched a fundraising campaign online on GoFundMe to make sure that we had funds to hire someone to record the
Mm,
music, video and audio, to pay the musicians, because all the performers who were involved, they were paid properly, they were paid well. So we shared a GoFundMe campaign and shared that with different people online who were very generous and helped us launch the festival. And then Javier had a colleague or colleagues in Guatemala who were interested in supporting the arts and really invested a significant amount to make sure that we had everything we needed. We had coffee and snacks, throughout the day for those in attendance, and just to make sure that it was that somehow it was a really comfortable and exciting place to be, and that it was conducive to learning and to just allowing everyone to open up and celebrate music and try things out. So yeah, there was a multi-layered process for that. I'm trying to remember any other things, maybe Javier, that we did along the way.
No, I think you outlined the process quite well. I mean, logistics was always, lots of details. It's hard when you are not there in the country, so that's one of the difficult things. Things like, who tunes the piano, little details like that. There is a little noise in the hall, there is a ventilator, there's things like that.
Mhm.
But overall, I think it went pretty well.
Yeah.
What I will
Yeah.
do.
So, and this year you have the other conference that you're partnering with the orchestra. Do you have any other exciting things that you're looking forward to at this conference coming up? And when is it?
Right. I think the dates are July 28th to August 3rd, so the last week of July. Yeah, basically we're now focusing on string quartets, and at the end, I think the orchestra musicians would play either as a chamber orchestra, our works, or the works of one or two students. Um, yeah, I guess I'm just curious to see, how this would develop. With Josh, we are always experimenting, right? Like we're seeing what
Yes.
what works, what doesn't work, and I guess that's how everything is, right? And then
Yeah.
over the years, you basically fine tune the things that you need to fine tune. So yeah, that's the second year.
And the thing about the second year that's different, another way in which it's different from the first is because of this partnership with this other festival, there's fewer logistics for us to have to coordinate. Doing a whole festival on your own is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So when this friend of Javier's, we found out that she was coordinating a festival for performers, we thought, well, we had some conversations, and she was open to having. She didn't have a compositional component to her festival, so we talked about the possibility of us offering that. So we're really, in this case, joining, and we're still taking care of, the compositional part, but we're fitting our schedule into her schedule. So we've got some various topics lined up. So similar to last year, we'll have a topic, some sessions on film scoring, and those will be given by a colleague of ours in Guatemala. And I might participate in that as well since I've been involved in film scoring. And then we'll have some sessions on Latin American music, because sometimes even Latin American composers who might be known outside of their country are not known, are unknown in their own country. So we want to make sure that that people in Guatemala know about their own heritage. There have been some wonderful composers come from Central America, and to get to know better what has been done throughout the Americas.
Mm.
So we'll have some sessions on that. We'll have the master classes, as Javier mentioned, and then the focus on stream writing this time.
Yeah. I'm really excited for you. Now are you doing a GoFundMe again this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thanks for
So,
asking. So
yes.
yes, so we do have a GoFundMe campaign going that we've been sharing on online, and people can look us up. They can basically GoFundMe and then look for Guatemala Music Festival 2025, and that would be a huge help if anyone wants to donate. That again will go toward the expenses on the ground, for making sure that this the composition festival can move forward and can be recorded, and we can provide this opportunity for the composers there.
Yeah, and I will link to that. So I should get this episode out by the beginning of July. So I will link to your GoFundMe uh, page. So any listeners who wish to contribute this to this cause, which I think is a wonderful thing. So, all right.
Wonderful.
Um,
Thank you so much.
oh, you're welcome. So, do you have time for a little get to know you a little more questions?
Of
We have a
course.
few
Yeah,
Sure.
minutes.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Javier, why don't you tell us, do you have a favorite piece of music?
That's one of the questions that I think is very hard to to answer because I mean it changes a lot. Last week I was listening to Mahler. The week before I listened to a lot of Bach. Right now, I mean, it changes, right? So right now, I like tango that is called the Noche de Garufa. And, I realize when I listen to something several times, and that means that's my favorite piece of the
Yes.
week or something. So right now, this week, that's what it is.
How about you, Josh?
For me, yeah, same thing. There's several pieces that I love, like the Brahms Second Piano Concerto, Stravinsky Rite of Spring, pieces that were somehow formative to me. Alberto Ginastera's Second Cello Concerto, absolutely love that piece, and spent some time analyzing that for my dissertation. But one of the first pieces that always comes to mind for me is Handel's Messiah,
Mm,
because that was the first time when I was 14 or 15 years old, I went to a concert. It was the first choir and orchestra concert I'd ever been to live. And it really impacted me. And it was during that concert at some point in Mexico that I just had this sense of loving the music, being deeply moved by the beauty of the music and the words, and feeling a desire to create, to be a composer. And then right after that desire, hearing or sensing this inner voice saying, "You can." And I've never forgotten that. It was just a very powerful mystical experience. And so I'll always think of that when I listen to Handel's Messiah. And yes, I realize for some musicians, maybe they've heard it too much because it gets played every Christmas and it helps pay the bills and all that. Um, but for me, it's just it'll always be special. And even though I didn't write very much choral music until more recently, now of course my life I've spent a lot of time writing for voices, and I absolutely love choir. So in a sense, I've come more recently sort of full circle back to
mhm.
that first
Yeah.
experience, the union of word and music.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this question here, I think I fits in well with part of your goals for the conference. But what musical skills do you think are most crucial to a musician's success and also non-musical skills?
Hmm.
So,
It's a good question.
yeah.
Javier, what do you think?
Sorry, what was the question again? What
Yeah,
musical?
what musical skills do you and non-musical skills do you think are most crucial to a musician's success?
Yeah. Well, it depends how you define success, right? So
Right.
that and that might be different for everybody or for different composers. For me, success means to be able to understand where you are in time, history, and like what are you supposed to do as a composer according to the place and time where you are, right? Like and success means if you are able to grasp what you need to do and you are able to do it, then that's
Mhm.
success. I mean, skills that I think are very important, at least for me. I think, I mean, I'm kind of like a traditionalist in this sense, is counterpoint. I think it's a very
Mhm.
important skill to have.
I agree.
And the second one is to develop your own harmonic language, right? So to be able to have ways in which you spend time with harmony by yourself and you develop ways in which you connect harmony that is not jazz, is not traditional functional harmony, is not anything that we know already. It has to come from your own exploration, and that is very difficult. But once you get that, I think it's very good skill.
Mm,
uh,
Mhm.
no musical skills for me is more of to have a well-rounded culture of an understanding of the arts. Read a lot of good literature, read a lot of poetry, read,
Mhm.
look at a lot of paintings, and that all that thing that just stays in your background that gives you, some sort of support. That is very important as a non-music skill. That's what I would say.
mm.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Really good points, Javier. Let's see. As far as musical skills, I'm trying to think something that I would add to that. Well, I guess learning how to listen deeply to the music, any style of music around you, and knowing how to dissect it or analyze it, um, because it's everyone can enjoy music and can perceive whether something is tension and release, in music, and we can have an emotional connection to it. But I think if you're a composer or if you're a performer, you want to go a step further to ask questions about why the music is moving you and how it's put together. And so I think developing a sense for deep listening and how to listen, what to listen for, that kind of thing, is important. And and then as far as non-musical skills, I think I think networking is pretty important. I'm trying to figure out what if there's a better word for that. I think it's about relationship building. Maybe it's better than a word networking. It's at least a more human approach to it. So if you're a composer and even if you're a performer as well, I mean, yes, there are people who win jobs at in an organization and then they join the orchestra, right? But in general, most people are going to be freelancing. That means that they're putting together different bands or ensembles for different projects, and they need to develop a list of contacts of people they like to work with, people who like to work with them. So you have to be able to do that. And I'm always encouraging my composers to meet not other composers, meet performers,
Right.
conductors, so they need to develop that skill. And I mean, composing can be a very isolating experience. And so if you're spending hours and hours composing, that's hours and hours alone, right? And
Yeah.
you can have a rich inner life, and it's a place for the imagination to run wild. And then you can play around with sound and all this stuff. But at some point, you have to exit the composing cave and learn how to talk to other human beings. Um, so that's very important. And then I would say the other thing is learning how to communicate your particular vision for a musical project, learning how to communicate that efficiently, learning how to cast a vision so that other people can get excited about what you're working on and hopefully will want to play the music or want to partner with you on whatever project you're working on. And then I really like what Javier mentioned about reading and knowing about other
Yeah.
arts, because yes, it is also very easy to get tunnel vision and just be focused on music, but music is one of many other forms of expression. And I think we are all enriched, whether we're playing or teaching or composing or none of the above. We are enriched if we're reading novels, if we're reading poetry, if we're learning how artwork is assembled and learning how to enjoy and just appreciate visual arts. So all of that enriches us as human beings.
All right. And I'm going to ask one last question. And where do you find your inspiration for composing? Javier?
That's such a difficult question, right? I mean, inspiration can come from anywhere. But for me, I always try that at least the say like the seed of the composition. I always try to be come almost like unconsciously when improvising on the piano. Most of the music I write is improvising on the piano first, and in that regard, I feel that I am not planning things or I'm not deciding things at the beginning, but I'm just letting things happen. And so in that case, inspiration there is just something that happens, right? Like it's just something that I mean, today a piece came, tomorrow maybe not. Um, so it is something that is hard to define. But I think what is important for me is to know this thing is inspiration and this thing is not inspiration, and to be able to tell, that's important.
Yeah, and that's that skill of discerning what is truly inspiration, what is not, or at least what is worth spending time thinking about and developing. That's, I mean, that's just something that we develop along the way, I guess. But yeah, it's difficult to say. I certainly can't plan on being inspired necessarily, or um, but I guess for me, I do often when I'm reading poetry or reading something that's interesting, there will usually be like a phrase that jumps out at me, or a word that a wordsmith has put together that sometimes can spark a musical idea, or I think, ooh, that would be a great title for a piece. And then my next question is, well, what would that piece sound like? So sometimes that can spark an idea. Sometimes I'm just yeah, walking along, and I'll get an idea. My phone is filled with little melodies and little recordings of me singing and beatboxing into the phone, and most of them are not great, but some of them might be worth developing, and I'll do that at some point. So yeah, it's a tough one, but I think, yeah, learning to be open and alert and kind of discerning, because it's almost like when inspiration hits, it's almost like a call. It's an invitation to something. And so being ready for that is part of what a person has to do as a creative.
Yeah, great words. Thank you so much, both of you, for being on today's podcast episode. I have really enjoyed getting to know you both more and to hear about your festival in Guatemala. And I hope that listeners will be inspired by that and be hopefully willing to contribute a little bit to help this project along to support the composers in Guatemala. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you, Heather.
You.
We really appreciate this, and is happy to. I mean, I'm glad to see you again, and keep talking about music.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You're welcome. If you are interested in supporting Guatemala Contemporanea, I have linked to their GoFundMe account in the show notes. You have been listening to the Musicking Community Podcast with host Heather Nimi Savage. Please visit our website, themusiccingcommunity.com. That's music with a C-K-I-N-G, where you can find the show notes as well as an application to be a guest on the podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Substack. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.